Here we're going to go over using pails and rails to expand your range of motion in your toes, particularly the big toe, as it's more fundamental towards moving, walking, jumping, kind of any gait mechanism with our foot. But also we could do this with all five toes if we feel the need. So what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to use pails and rails, which are just two sort of isometric contractions working in both ways of the joints. We're going to put your feet on stretch, and then first you're going to start out pushing in to the stretch with an isometric and then pulling away. So if you've done any sort of kin stretch or FRC work, this is going to be familiar to you. If not, just know that you're going to be pushing and pulling, trying to just move the one toe or whatever toes you're working with. And you don't really need any tools for this other than yourself and a wall or the corner of a wall, a door frame, something you can just wedge and stretch yourself up against. And at the end of the video, if you need a reminder of which way pails and rails are, I've put a little screenshot of my toe and then little arrow directionals showing you which way to go. Alright, so go ahead and enjoy.
So when we talk about mobility, we're talking about having as much control through as many ranges of motion as we can. And in some cases that may mean that we need to actually acquire more range of motion that we can actually control. So for that, what we're going to do is use some FRC principles, pails and rails, to expand our passive range of motion in our toes, primarily our big toe, but all other four as well. And then from there, we're going to use some similar principles to develop more neuromuscular control over those ranges. So what we're first going to do is set ourselves up in our passive range. And I'm using a box right here. This could be the edge of a rack like this, the edge of a wall, cupboard, anything where you can just get your toe propped up against. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and wedge my big toe on the corner here and take it as far passively as I can. As far passively as I can while I can still maintain contact of those 3 points that we've been talking about: heel, big toe mound, and lateral toe mound. So as you can see here, I'm wedging myself up against my passive range of my big toe. And what we're going to do here is just spend around 2 minutes breathing, hanging out, allowing our body to acclimate and get comfortable to its end range, and then just prepare to better receive the signals that we're going to be sending. So again, we're going to be here for about 2 minutes. For the sake of the video, I'm just going to speed that up and imagine that I've been here for 2 minutes. And then the two types of signals that we'll be using are going to be called pails and rails. And if you're not familiar, just simply put it, we're first going to be pushing into the block, trying to bring our big toe down to the ground. And the box here is going to make sure that nothing moves, so it's going to be an isometric contraction. And then after the pails, we're going to take a breather, and then we're going to try to pull away. So engaging all of this opposite side tissue, because again, we want full control over a joint's range of motion, so that entails both sides of the joint. So for the pails, what you're going to do is after you've sat here for 2 minutes, you're going to slowly, maintaining the structure of your foot here, not losing points of contact anywhere, you're going to slowly start to ramp up into your block here, whatever's blocking your toe. And imagine that you're starting at a red light, trying not to just jam on a gas pedal, but slowly easing into it and working your way up over the course of a couple seconds to your greatest, safest effort that you can with your big toe, and hold that for about 10 seconds or as much as you can. And then after, slowly disengage, again controlling through this range of motion. And then we're going to work on pulling off of the block here. You're not going to actually move anywhere, or you shouldn't if you're at your true end range, but the important part is that you're trying to activate all of this tissue, all of this muscle, connective tissue, getting that signal to the brain of what you want to be doing. And for the rails contraction or the pulling away, I prefer to stay at a lower intensity, just for longer durations, rather than just trying to squeeze everything you can and then sort of compensating everywhere else. So again, let's go for, say, 50%. And again, the more experience you have with this, the more you can play with your intensity and hold that effort for really as long as you can without losing connection to your target area. So after you go through your first round of pails and rails, you may have found you can sneak in a bit more passive range. So if you can, try to reposition your foot again Sometimes I'll use my fingers here with my toes just because it's easier. And again, maintaining the points of contact from the heel, big toe, fifth metatarsal there. See I'm getting kind of wonky. And again, we'll repeat these pails and rails for, usually it's prescribed about 2 to 3 rounds, or as much as you can tolerate. Again, if you're just starting, you'll want to start out conservative. Don't over fatigue yourself. We're trying to create a message that allows our body to adapt, not just absolutely overwhelm it off the gate. Okay, so once we work on this passive range, what we're going to want to do is develop more avenues of control within that range. So the first and simplest, at least as it's laid out in the functional range systems, are passive range holds. It's pretty simple. We are at our passive range right now, and what we're going to do is activate that rails tissue. So we're going to try to pull off the block. You're going to work your way up to as much effort as you can doing that, and then you're going to slowly release yourself from that implement and try to maintain that position. At a certain point, you'll start to waver, and then you'll reassume position. Get in that passive range again. Again, set yourself up. Start to engage that big toe coming away from the object, and then slowly bring everything away from the object. Nice, and then let down with control if you can. So that's a passive range hold, and it's really good at helping solidify that end range that we just worked on. And another way that I like to sort of develop more control is what's called eccentric neural grooving, at least in functional range conditioning. And what we're going to do is, if we just worked on bringing all these toes up, what essentially neurally grooving this would look like is keeping this position and then trying to maintain this position while gravity is working to take us out of it. So you're going to stand up on your toes here, and again, primarily concerning yourself with that big toe, but again, involve all 5. And what we're going to do, I'm going to stand up, completely flex my ankle, plantar flex, and then I'm going to use my other foot as support, and then slowly just shift over onto this right foot, put all of my weight into this leg, and then allow gravity to take me down, bring my heel towards the ground, but all the while trying to engage my feet to resist that action of gravity. And again, that's going to bring us through this full range from the newly acquired end range that we worked on all the way to neutral. And this one's a bit more taxing, so again, be conservative at first, and then work your way up over time. And then as we just did this solely for the big toe, we could repeat the entire process for all 5. Again, just maintaining your position of all of your toes. That pinky, sometimes I gotta give them a little help there. And again, contact here, and the heel, and then repeat the process. From gaining new passive range, to trying to hold that passive range, to loading those ranges. All right.